The rope snapped clean through on the third pull. Ben Ashford stared at the frayed hemp in his calloused hands, then at the well that had fed his cattle for 15 years. The bucket sat 40 feet down in black water, mocking him. 3 ropes in 2 days. Good rope. The kind that should have lasted months. It's her, came Martha's voice from behind him, sharp as winter wind. Ever since she came to town, nothing works right. Ben didn't turn around. He knew the look on his neighbor's face, the same pinched expression that had spread through Redemption like wildfire since the girl arrived on last Tuesday's stage, pale as bone, silent as death, with eyes the color of storm clouds, no family name, no destination, just a single carpetbag and a way of looking at people that made them remember things they'd rather forget. Martha. Ben's voice carried a warning. Don't you Martha me, Benjamin Ashford. My hen stopped laying the day she stepped foot in this town. Old Pete's horse threw him for no reason. The widow Carson's well went dry overnight. She stepped closer, her boots crunching on the autumn leaves, and now your rope won't hold. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of sage and something else, something that reminded Ben of his mother's herb garden, of remedies that worked when the doctor's medicine failed. He'd caught that same scent yesterday, when he'd seen the girl sitting alone on the church steps, her dark dress making her look like a shadow against the white wood. Maybe the rope was old, he said. Maybe you're a fool. Ben finally turned. Martha Hendricks stood with her arms crossed, her grey hair pulled back so tight it stretched her features into permanent disapproval. Behind her, 3 other women nodded like church congregants following a sermon. Word traveled fast in Redemption, especially bad word. What exactly are you suggesting, Martha? I'm suggesting that girl needs to move on before something worse happens, before someone gets hurt. Martha's eyes glinted. Some folks are already talking about paying her a visit, making it clear she's not welcome. The bucket in the well shifted, metal scraping against stone. Ben looked down into the darkness, then back at the women watching him with expectant faces. In the distance, smoke rose from the town's chimneys, carrying with it the weight of whispers and suspicion. He thought of the girl's eyes, not cursed, but grieving, not dangerous, but desperately alone. She stays. The words left Ben's mouth before he'd fully decided to speak them, but once they hung in the morning air, he felt the rightness of them settle in his chest like a deep breath. Martha's face flushed red. Benjamin Ashford, you've lost your mind. Maybe. Ben coiled the broken rope slowly, deliberately. Or maybe I've found it. You don't know what she is, what she might bring down on all of us. I know what you are. Ben's voice carried across the yard like a rifle shot. A woman so afraid of her own shadow that you'd drive out a child rather than look at why your hens aren't laying. The other women shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Patterson, the baker's wife, cleared her throat. Ben, we're just concerned. About what? That a 17-year-old girl with 1 bag and no family might somehow destroy a town that survived drought, locusts, and 2 Indian wars. He turned to face them all. When did we become so small? Martha's jaw worked like she was chewing leather. Fine, but when crops fail and cattle die, don't come crying to us. She spun on her heel, her skirts whipping around her legs. Come on, ladies, we have real work to do. The women followed like ducklings, their whispers carrying promises of consequences and retribution. Ben watched them go, then looked back at the well. The bucket still waited in the darkness below. He was measuring a 4th rope when hoofbeats echoed across his property. 3 riders approached at an easy lope, their shadows long in the morning sun. Ben recognized them before they reached his fence. Tom Bradley and his 2 boys, faces set with the kind of determination that usually ended with someone buried in the town cemetery. Morning, Ben. Tom tipped his hat, but his eyes held no warmth. Here you've taken up defending witches. Here you've taken up believing in fairy tales, Tom. Ain't no fairy tale when a man's livelihood gets threatened. Tom shifted in his saddle. That girl's poison, Ben. The sooner she's gone, the better for everyone, including her, especially her. Town's getting restless, wouldn't want anything unfortunate to happen. The threat hung between them like heat shimmer on summer stone. Ben felt something cold settle in his stomach, not fear, but recognition. He'd seen this before, this need to blame and punish when life got hard. It never ended well. Tom, Ben's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. You threatening a child? I'm warning a neighbor. In the distance a church bell tolled 11 times, each note carrying across the valley like a countdown. By sunset they came with torches. Ben saw the orange glow first, flickering between the pine trees like fallen stars. He'd been expecting them, had felt the weight of their anger building all day like pressure before a storm. The girl sat on his porch steps where she'd been since noon, clutching that carpet bag like it held her life. She hadn't said a word when he'd invited her to stay, hadn't said thank you, or asked why, just nodded once and followed him home like she'd been waiting for someone to finally choose her side. How many? She asked now, her voice barely audible above the evening wind. Ben counted the lights. Dozen, maybe more. She stood slowly smoothing her dark dress. I should go. Where? Ben turned to face her. Where exactly would you go, child? The girl, she'd never given her name, and he'd never asked, looked out at the approaching mob with eyes that held no surprise, only resignation, like she'd seen this scene before in other towns, with other torches. Anywhere but here, she whispered. The mob reached his gate, their faces orange and demonic in the torchlight. Tom Bradley rode at the front, his jaw set like granite. Behind him, Ben recognized half the town, shopkeepers and farmers, the blacksmith and the barber, even young Timothy Walsh, barely 18 himself, caught up in the fever of righteous anger. We've come for the girl, Ben, Tom called out. Send her out, and there won't be any trouble. Funny thing about trouble, Tom. Ben stepped off the porch, his rifle loose in his hands. Usually shows up when good people stop thinking. We are thinking. We're thinking about our families, our livelihoods. Tom's horse stamped nervously. That girl's brought nothing but misfortune since she arrived. What misfortune exactly? Broken rope, skittish horses, Martha's lazy hens. A voice from the back of the crowd shouted, Widow Carson's well. Widow Carson's well has been running dry every October for 5 years running. Ben replied steadily, but I suppose it's easier to blame a stranger than dig a new one. The torches wavered like angry wasps. Someone muttered about unnatural things, about signs and portents. Ben could feel their fear radiating outward, hot and desperate and dangerous. Last chance, Ben. Tom's hand moved to his gun. We're taking her one way or another. Behind him the girl stepped forward. No, the single word cut through the night like a blade. Every man in that crowd turned to look at her, this pale slip of a thing who'd somehow found her voice in the face of their hatred. I won't run anymore. Her chin lifted. If you want me, here I am. The torches stopped moving, even the horses went still, and in that moment of perfect silence, Ben made his choice. Tell them, Ben said quietly. The girl looked at him with those storm cloud eyes, confusion flickering across her features. Tell them why you're here. Tell them what's in that bag you won't let go of. It won't matter, she whispered. It might. The mob waited, torches casting dancing shadows on the ground between them. Tom Bradley's hand remained on his gun, but something in his expression had shifted, a crack in the certainty that had driven him here. The girl clutched her carpetbag tighter. My name is Sarah, Sarah Mitchell. Her voice grew stronger with each word. I came here because this is where my brother died. A murmur ran through the crowd. Someone lowered their torch. James Mitchell. He worked the silver mine up at Copper Creek 2 years back. Cave-in took 6 men. She opened the bag with trembling fingers. I've been carrying his things from town to town, trying to find where he's buried, trying to bring him home. She pulled out a Bible, worn leather soft as skin, a pocket watch, a photograph of 2 children standing beside a woman with kind eyes. He wrote me before he died, said redemption was full of good people, said if anything happened to him, they'd see him buried proper. The silence stretched like a held breath, but when I came asking, nobody remembered him, nobody wanted to help a stranger find a grave. Her voice cracked. So I waited, sat on the church steps thinking someone might remember, someone might care enough to point me toward where my brother rests. Tom Bradley dismounted slowly. James Mitchell, he said, tall boy, quiet, sent most of his wages back east. Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. I remember him. Tom's voice had gone soft. Good worker, never complained. He looked around at the other faces, recognition dawning. He's buried up on the hill behind the church. Simple marker. Didn't know he had family. One by one the torches lowered. The baker's wife wiped her eyes. Young Timothy Walsh hung his head in shame. Ben watched the anger drain out of them like water from a broken dam, leaving behind only people who'd let fear turn them into something they weren't. Sarah, Ben said gently, would you like to see him tomorrow? I'll take you up there. She nodded, unable to speak. The mob that had come to drive her out began to disperse, their torches guttering in the night wind. Some muttered apologies, others simply left in silence, carrying their shame home like stones in their pockets. Tom Bradley lingered longest. I'm sorry, miss, about your brother, about tonight. He forgave easy, Sarah said. Guess I can too. The grave marker was simple granite, weathered by 2 hard winters but still readable. James Mitchell, 1845 to 1878, gone to glory. Sarah knelt beside it in the morning sun, finally able to touch the letters of her brother's name. He always said he'd build us a house someday, she told Ben, her fingers tracing the carved stone, somewhere with a garden where Mama could grow her roses. She smiled through fresh tears. Guess he found his home after all. Ben stood quietly beside her, his hat in his hands. The town spread out below them, smoke rising from chimneys, people beginning their daily routines, different people than they'd been yesterday, humbled by their own capacity for cruelty, reminded of their better natures. What will you do now? He asked. Sarah reached into her carpet bag one final time and pulled out a small cloth bundle. Inside were seeds, roses, just like the ones her mother had loved. Think this ground might be good for planting. Best soil in the valley, Ben said. If you're planning to stay, I am. She looked up at him with eyes that had lost their storm clouds, replaced by something clearer, hope maybe, or just the simple peace of being where she belonged. James always said good people were worth waiting for. Guess he was right. Down in the town, church bells began to ring, calling the faithful to Sunday service. One by one families emerged from their houses, dressed in their finest clothes. Martha Hendricks walked arm in arm with her husband, her face softer than Ben had seen it in years. The baker's wife carried fresh bread for the after-service social. Even Tom Bradley tipped his hat to his neighbors, the fever of fear finally broken. Come on, Ben said, offering Sarah his arm. Let's go to church, introduce you proper to the town. They walked down the hill together, past the new well rope that held strong and true, past the henhouse where Martha's chickens had mysteriously started laying again, past all the small mysteries that had seemed so threatening just one day before. Sarah Mitchell took her place in the front pew of Redemption's church, no longer a stranger but a neighbor, no longer cursed but blessed with the rarest gift of all, a home where she was wanted. Years later, when the roses bloomed wild and sweet around James Mitchell's grave, people would remember the night they almost drove away their angel, but they'd remember too how one man's simple kindness had saved them all from becoming something unforgivable, and how sometimes the things we fear most are exactly what we need to make us whole. The church bell tolled one final time, and Sarah Mitchell smiled.